Hi, everyone. Welcome to Strategenius's Member School Spotlight. I'm Hua. I am joined by two of my team members, Nancy Nanker-Bruce, as well as our president and founder, Orpheus Crutchfield. We are so excited today to be able to showcase Rowland Hall, which is an independent school located in Salt Lake City, Utah. Next slide. So for those who are not familiar with us, Strategenius is one of the only BIPOC owned and operated search firms, partnering exclusively with independent schools throughout the United States and some schools internationally. For over 20 years, Strategenius's core tenet is to promote and champion equity and belonging in education by providing and improving diversity among independent school teachers and leaders. For us, we see everything through an equity lens, and we consider our member schools and educators as partners. Next slide. The educators we partner with are diverse in many ways and in dimensions. Whether they're just starting out or ready to become head of schools, the thread that connects our educators is their passion for DIJB and their desire to seek out communities and schools that embrace and celebrate DIJB. Our consultants have decades of experience mentoring and coaching educators. We are especially proud of how we've built relationships that span entire careers. We also take pride in supporting organizations and conferences that center diverse educators and equity. For example, we have been a major sponsor of POCC since 2001 and are partnering with regional POCIS groups to help educators with their application materials. Next slide. We take our partnership with member schools seriously. Like educators, our member schools are diverse in size, philosophy, and in many ways. The common thread connecting them is their commitment to DEIJB. As our partners, we push our member schools to think critically about their recruitment, hiring, and retention practices as they pertain to diverse educators. Currently, we partner with over 135 member schools, most of them located on the East and West Coast. Each school is unique in their own way, and we feel lucky to get to know them when we visit and work with them. We realize that sometimes it's hard for educators to really get to know a school. We know that a website or social media account can't always convey everything that makes a place really special. So to bridge that gap, we are hosting member school spotlights to give a school the stage to let them share with educators what makes their school so special and unique. Next slide. Our member school spotlights are recorded so that we can spread the word to everyone who couldn't make it. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the torch over to our friends at Rowland Hall. Oh, next slide, sorry. And here we go.
I'll stop sharing.
This world that we live in, it's big and beautiful.
It's inspiring.
It's diverse, interconnected, and ever-changing.
It's complex. And with complexity comes challenge and opportunities.
To shape the future and be the people the world needs.
People who are inquisitive, who see things differently, who can adapt to change.
At Rowland Hall, we are committed to cultivating community,
to lift others up, to be open-minded, to never stop learning.
We aren't afraid of failure, and we dream big.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into this member spotlight. My name is Dr. Chandani Patel. I am the inaugural Director of Equity and Inclusion here at Rowland Hall, and it is our pleasure to share a little bit about our school today as part of this spotlight panel. I'm going to first turn things over to our head of school, Mick G, who's going to share a little bit about the history of our school as well as our mission, vision, and values. And I'm just going to spend 1 second sharing our slide deck so that we are all able to follow along with our presentation for today. So I'm going to turn it over to Mick now.
Hi, everyone. As Chandni said, my name is Mick G. I'm the head of school here, my 4th year here at Roland Hall. And I get the job of talking about what's on the screen right now, but I only get a few minutes to do that because we want to turn it over to students and teachers who are really out there doing the work. But the summary of the school is that we are old. We're 156 years old this year. That's 30 years about older than the state that we reside in. I would say that the brief overview of the school, and I'm thinking a little bit of when I looked at the school for the first time, when I joined the school, this is what I liked about it, and I'll share that with you. So I think, we occupy a great place in the market here in Salt Lake City. We're number one, and we've got a reputation for being certainly an academically rigorous school. We've had that for a long time. And I think as a school where diversity of thought and diversity in all sense of the word, people come, they seek us out when they're looking for a school in which they can see themselves. And our students and faculty will say more about that. When I came here, I was looking for those kinds of things. I was looking for a real community that really meant it when it said that it valued everyone's input. And I found that here. And I will say that another thing that drew me to the school is we're super stable. We have very high enrollment. And when I came here, we do school really well. So we've been a college preparatory school for 156 years, and we've done a great job of that super stable base. And I also came here because the school was not content to stay there. We think and dream and look in terms of vision for students higher than that. College prep for us is a low bar, I think, these days. As elements of that video just said, we are thinking beyond college because we know we do that well, prepare kids to go on to the best schools in the world. But we're really thinking about the world itself and what does the world need in terms of people generation? What type of people does the world need right now? And where do we see ourselves in that space of developing people the world needs? So our vision has gone straight past being a really good independent school and straight past college prep to, gosh, look at the world today. What kind of knowledge, skills, dispositions do students need, whether they're 3 years old or 18 years old? What are they going to need as they go out and contribute to the world? And so you can see there we live by those core values, which we do live by them. And we speak about them about once or twice every day, I think, in some kind of way. And then we've built this whole set of a vision statement around developing people the world needs, and then some strategic priorities that we'll just share briefly here. There's just 4 really, and they've got sub-bullets and things like that. But in the brief time I have, I'll say that the first one is about community. So we care about our own community and how people feel, whether they belong here at the school, but we also care about the wider community that we sit in and how we operate within that. We're not content to be a good independent school that's kind of taking care of our own community. We really want to be a bigger part of the region here and the country and even the world. And so when we start thinking about community, we think about partnerships. We think about ways that we can contribute to the community around us and the way that we can partner on across lots of different areas. We are hard thinking about curriculum too. So the second of our priorities is really about pedagogy. I think the word authentic learning gets thrown around a lot in education. My view of that is doing the real thing. So we're really thinking hard about what's the difference between teaching science and having students have an opportunity to be a scientist. Teaching history, being a historian, writing for your English teacher. There's some English teachers on the video here, and sending your writing out for public view, for public comment, to be submitted to journals and things like that. So the authentic learning experience is doing the real thing. And we think you can do that from the ages of 3 to 18 in lots of different ways. So we're engaged in pedagogical conversations about what does authentic learning look like and what are some of those experiences. So we have kids off campus doing real work with real partners in the community, as an example. The third one is always the hardest one in schools, curriculum. Everyone's got an opinion. And we are thinking hard about these 3 questions in terms of the curriculum that's still important and it's going to help develop people the world needs? What do we keep? What is never going to go out of style? Critical thinking, the ability to communicate, to write. But what do we want to create? What's new? What do students need that we didn't have at school? I say that with younger people. What about our own students now? In 5 years' time, will they need different kinds of experiences to be able to contribute in the world? So the three key questions in curriculum are: what do you keep? What do you create? There's lots to do. So what do you cut? And that's a hard thing in school. So we're really thinking really hard about our curriculum and what do we want to add as new experiences? What's really never going to go away? And what are some things we can let go of in with the goal of building new things? And the fourth one, so one is about community and who we are and how we fit into the region here. Two is about how we teach. Three is about what we teach. And the fourth one is about where do we do all of that? We're split over 2 campuses right now. We have a purpose-built pre-K through 5th grade campus that is 21 years old. Beautiful campus that was designed for young children and their learning needs in mind. And then we have an older campus, which is a beautiful traditional building in town, but is almost 100 years old. And we're split. We're about 1.25 miles apart. We make it work, but we've got a concrete plan. I say concrete because we'll be pouring it this summer, but a concrete plan to bring the campuses together. And we're building a brand new middle and high school right next to our lower school campus. The plan for that is to start digging, as I said, this summer in 24, and it will be open for students in 26. That'll give us an opportunity to design space specifically for the learning of today and not yesteryear. So that's our brief vision and priorities and a glimpse of where we're heading. And now I'll turn it over to some folks who can dive into a few more details.
Thanks so much, Mick. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time digging into this first strategic priority. So again, a reminder, I'm Dr. Chandani Patel. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion here at Rowland Hall. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking specifically about this first strategic priority, which is about our community, cultivate a community where each member thrives. This is the place where we're doing a lot of our DEI work. If you'll notice on that second sub-bullet, we're really working hard to make sure that all of our community members have fluency in equity and inclusion. And this work is embedded as well, of course, in the work that we're doing around designing curriculum and how we're teaching and what we're teaching. And you'll hear a little later from some of our divisional equity coordinators who are faculty members who are helping to support that work. I want to share a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to chat a little bit more with all of you about Rowland Hall's DEI work. So as I mentioned at the top of this call, this is an inaugural position for the school. So this is my 3rd year in this role and the 3rd year that this role has been here at Rowland Hall, but the work precedes me by many years. This work has been taken up by faculty and students for over a decade now in a formal way, and before that in more informal ways. And that was a large part of what drew me to the school as I was going through the interview process, actually with Strategenius, who was the search firm that the school had contracted with. And I asked a lot of hard questions around where is the school when it comes to its DEI work. And I was pleasantly surprised and really happy to learn that a lot of the work had been formally happening with faculty committees as well as affinity groups for our students. And I felt really good about coming into a community that had already done some of that foundation setting so that when I entered the community, I was really able to learn more about what that work looks like. And then also, of course, able to grow it with the team on this call and others as well throughout the school. So I often get asked the question around our diversity mission, right? Like, what does it mean to have a diversity mission? And this mission actually precedes me. And a lot of the ways that we talk about doing this work in a 3 pre-K to 12 setting, which is, range of learners from age 3 to 18 plus, is what does it look like in action in a learning environment? And a lot of the work that we're trying to do alongside our students and faculty and staff is to normalize and celebrate differences. So for many of us adults on the screen, when we were going through school or growing up, we were told often not to talk about differences, to accept that everyone's a human, and to kind of ignore those aspects of who we are and what makes us unique. And the work that we're doing here at Rowland Hall is to really normalize, celebrate, talk about differences so that our students, as they're growing and going through school, of course, with us, but also later in life, they can really celebrate who they are in the world and have a deep appreciation for each other's differences. And we know, of course, because all of the research tells us this, that for students to learn in their best way possible, they need to feel a deep sense of belonging. So that's really how we think about our work, is how to create a deep sense of belonging for each and every student, so that they are celebrated, so that they are known in our community, and our faculty do such a great job getting to know all of our students. We also firmly believe that everyone is part of this work, and that's part of why you'll hear from so many different folks today on this call, on this panel, is because so many folks are taking up this work. We very much are a community that believes that everyone needs to commit to carrying out this mission, both within our school, but also in the wider community. So in terms of key priorities and initiatives, these are some of the ways in which we do this work. We, of course, think about the curriculum and how do we integrate conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion into our curriculum. You'll hear in a little while from some of our divisional equity coordinators. Again, we have 4 divisions, beginning, lower, middle, and upper. In each of those divisions, we have a coordinator who works closely with faculty as they're looking at their curriculum and ways to enhance the DEI work that we're doing, integrate it, embed it into those everyday classroom environments. We also have adopted Learning for Justice's social justice standards as we're thinking about, in age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate ways, what does that work look like for various learners that we have here at school? So those are kind of the anchor standards that we use when we're thinking about DEI integration into the curriculum. We also spend a lot of time creating ongoing opportunities for our community to do their learning, to make sure that they have resources. We have affinity groups in lower, middle, and upper school. You'll hear a little later from some of our upper school students who are leaders of some of those affinity group spaces, who are also leaders in other aspects of this work at school as well. We host and hold a number of community programs. We have an upcoming MLK Week program as an example, where we very much tried to align that learning across the school for students, but also for the broader community to come in and spend some time together to do some learning and build some community together. And of course, ongoing resource creation and distribution as well. Part of this work also, of course, looks at policies and practices, making sure, again, that we are cultivating that community where everyone can thrive. And sometimes that means looking at policies, revising policies, introducing new policies. So that is, of course, work that is ongoing and that I get to do in partnership with lots of folks around school. So we spend time thinking about anti-bias in the hiring process. We spend time thinking about bias-related incidents, protocols, processes, how are we supporting our community members and especially our students when there is conflict or disagreements, to make sure that we have moments to repair relationships, to do some education so that we're continuing to improve as a community. And how can we be more inclusive with our policies and practices? And so I'm thinking specifically about gender inclusive policies for our students so that we are honoring who they are, making sure that we are educating along the way so that our students feel supported and seen in our community every day. We also, of course, when we're thinking about DEI, lots of intersections with admissions and financial aid, as well as thinking strategically, as Mick just mentioned, from an all-school lens around how does this work look all the way from the top to the bottom. So all the way from the conversations the board's having to what's happening in our classroom spaces. So I would like to invite now 2 of my colleagues, Shuja Khan, who's the Director of Enrollment Management, to spend a little bit of time talking about intersections from his lens in terms of his role and his team and how DEI is embedded in that work. And then after he's done sharing a little bit, we'll invite Jay DeJesus, who's our Director of Strategic Initiatives, to share a little bit from his lens as well. So Shuja, when you're ready, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. So hi, everyone. As Chandani said, I'm Shuja Khan. I'm the Director of Enrollment. Chandani and I actually started at the same time here. And so our work has been pretty closely aligned with one another. Part of it, when you think about admissions and financial aid, is a process question. That's kind of where the inclusivity aspect starts for us. If you had a charter school out there where all you had to do was sign up on a piece of paper that you wanted to enroll, even that small barrier becomes impossible for some people. It's going to exclude parts of the population. And so when you have an application process like ours, it's pretty robust, across all the divisions and has a lot of pieces to it. Every one of those pieces excludes a certain part of the population. And so we try and be, as much as we can, to be thoughtful about every part of the process and its necessity in kind of weighing things. We don't include things in the application just for the sake of including them and for making it more robust. We include the things that we think are going to help us inform decisions around who's going to be successful within our community. And so the process piece is as important as anything else. I think what I bristle at, having done admissions for a long time, is when admissions gets charged with the idea of just going out there to find more diversity, right? That we're obligated to seek out diversity wherever it is. And that term itself, diversity, is often pretty ill-defined. And then what it means is we just want more visible diversity in our classrooms. We sometimes want kids that behave just like everyone else, but look different. And so our classrooms can look more diverse. And really, I think for Jonathan and I, the process begins with a self-examination, right? That we want to look at ourselves and see what kind of kids are successful here. And what diversity means to us. And if there are students in that group that are missing in some way that we're not reaching, the reasons for that might be that those kids don't know that our school exists, but that often is not the case. Often it's because we have specific policies and things in place, things that we do that are making it so that those kids don't want to apply or don't want to enroll in our school. So we don't want to be simplistic about it and just say, well, if more people knew, then we would seek out more diversity. What we have to do is examine our own procedures, examine what we do around, with our handbook, around behavior policies, academic policies that may be excluding particular groups of people, so that we can change who we are. And then knowing that if we change, the kids that we want to attract, the diversity that we want to achieve is attainable. Those kids will know about us and will come and want to apply, and then ultimately enroll and graduate, be successful here. So that process of seeing kids all the way through, that when we have kids that are contemplating leaving, there are processes we have in place to kind of to help families to be able to stay and be able to ultimately graduate. That the goal isn't to enroll as many kids as we can, is to graduate kids at the end of their senior year, to see them all the way through. So like I said, Johnny and I work really closely together. I'm happy to kind of answer more questions if there are, but I think the process is around those things that we meet regularly. We think about who we are as a school, what diversity means to us, and how we kind of advance the work, both in the admissions financial aid process, but then also critically kind of in who we are as a school.
Thanks so much, Shuja. I'm going to turn things over to Jay, who's going to share a little bit from his role as the Director of Strategic Initiatives.
Unmute. Thanks again, Chandni. And again, my name is Jay DeJesus. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at Roland Hall. I've been here since 2015, first as a division head in the lower school, and now in this new role. Sometimes people ask, what does a Director of Strategic Initiatives do? And I have the role of supporting the community and ensuring that our vision for the future of the school, developing people the world needs, isn't just a bunch of words on our website, but are really things that our students get to experience and that have impact in our community. So 2 thoughts on how diversity, equity, and inclusion work are integrated into our strategic priorities and strategic vision. First off, I think it's telling that there's an explicit call out to DEI, and that is the first priority, right? Important to note that priority 1 is that we as a school are committed to cultivating a community where everyone thrives, both internally, who we are here at Roland Hall, and how we show up in our and engage with our community in Salt Lake City and in Utah, right? And then additionally, while it's called out as our priority, as our first strategic priority, themes like equity, inclusion, belonging, community engagement, public purpose, social justice are integrated into our other 3 priorities in a way that are critical and foundational, right? So when we think about authentic learning, reimagine curriculum, and even how we envision our new campus being a resource in our community, I think demonstrate and are evidence of our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, again, both internally for our Roland Hall community and in our city and region.
Thanks so much, Jay. I'm going to turn things over now. You'll get a chance to hear about what this work looks like in action in each of our divisions. So we have a number of folks who are going to be joining us for this part of our conversation. We have 3 divisional equity coordinators, Samantha Hemphill, who's our lower school divisional equity coordinator and a 5th grade teacher. We have Susan Phillips, who's our middle school divisional equity coordinator and a 6th grade teacher, as well as Dr. Kate Taylor, who is our upper school divisional equity coordinator, as well as a 9th and 10th grade English teacher. And joining them are 3 assistant principals. So we are delighted that we have Josie Elsindor, who's one of our beginning and lower school assistant principals. We have Charlotte Larson, who's our middle school assistant principal, and we have Stacia McFadden, who's our upper school assistant principal. So each of those pairs of folks are going to talk a little bit about these questions that you see here on your screen. So when we're thinking about DEI through a curricular lens, as well as through a divisional approach, what does this look like in age-appropriate ways for each of our divisions? And what are those opportunities and support for faculty to continue to do this work to support our students that we have here at Roland Hall? So if those 6 folks could go ahead and unmute themselves. And I think it makes most sense probably to start with Samantha and Josie, if you would like to get us started by talking about what does this work look like from the beginning and lower school lens as we're thinking about our youngest learners here at Roland Hall from 3 pre-K to 5th grade.
Thank you, Chandni. Such a pleasure to be here. I do want to say, when I was touring the school, one of the biggest things that I noticed for the beginning school, which are grades 3 pre-K to kindergarten, is the amount of diversity that existed in their book displays, right? And so with that being said, there's a plethora of a book list that is geared towards beginning school, right? From holidays to family cultures to neurodiversity, even on the littlest stage, identity work is being done in the beginning school, which is awesome. There's also a beginning school diversity coordinator, right? Which talks to the work that's being done here and how serious and important we take this work, right? Because they're not too young to learn. Families are invited to come in and share their culture with their classes. And also there's a philosophy here to engage children in their curiosity and to foster their learning about not only who they are, but about the world around them. So that's the beginning school, right? And I think it's very telling that this work is being done with our littlest humans in this community. In lower school, and it's a pleasure to have Samantha here because she's also a 5th grade teacher. And one of the things that I was so impressed with as of late, that just happened a couple of weeks ago, is this project that they were engaged in on doing research on Indigenous nations in our country, right? And it was high quality research. They did the research, collected information, edited their work, and wrote papers on what they learned. That is what diversity within our curriculum looks like, right? Authentic learning. And Samantha, you can certainly talk more about that if you want at this moment.
Yeah, I'll add to that too, that in our learning about Indigenous nations, we not just focused on Indigenous nations of the past, but present as well. And we talked about the land back movement and the appreciation of culture and identities happening now. And Josie, go ahead if there was anything else you wanted to add about the lower school before I chat more.
No, I just again, I am so impressed with the book list, especially that you brought out, Samantha, that you had distributed to the lower school that talks about neurodiversity, culture, right? Sexual orientation and so forth. So another thing that we realize is that we need to have diversity within not only the curriculum, but books that children can pick from. And the library, the librarians do a wonderful job in curating those kinds of books as well. And I think that's, for the most part, that's what I am really impressed with, is the resources that we have for our students, but also the work that we do within faculty, right? We have faculty meetings that are focused on identity work, faculty meetings that are focused on how to interrupt microaggressions, right? Doing case studies and having discussion on what we would do in that situation. So not only is it being done with students, but there's so much buy-in with our faculty members, especially in lower school and beginning school.
And then I'll add too, in our social studies curriculum across multiple grades in the lower school, there's been a push to focus on multiple perspectives as we're looking at history and hearing often the unsung voices throughout history. Using those Learning for Justice standards, we've been pushing to have students share and understand their identities and their culture, and then learning to appreciate the culture and identity of their classmates. Josie mentioned that families come in the beginning school, but also in the lower school as well. Families will come in and share about a holiday or a tradition that's special to them. In 5th grade right now, 5th graders are sharing a tradition that's special to their family and doing a project to represent that tradition. And then there's also a lot of conversation in our SEL curriculum about how to recognize injustices and unfairnesses, both like on the playground with our youngest learners and in their life. And right now in 5th grade, looking at the unhoused community in Salt Lake City and recognizing unfairnesses there, and what students in beginning school through 5th grade could do to make a difference, both here in the classroom, on the playground, and in their everyday life, as well as what they can do to have a bigger impact on their community.
Thank you both so much. And I will add too that the lower school has 4 affinity groups for our kids as well. We have a kids of color group, we have a neurodivergent kids group, we have a rainbow club, and we have what we call banana splits for kids whose parents are divorced or divorcing, and they meet once a month. They have a faculty mentor, and that has been an excellent addition for our students and their families in our community. So really excited about those. And Josie has been such a champion of those affinity groups and getting families information about them and making sure all of our kiddos get there, because they're small. Sometimes they get lost after school, right? So making sure they know where to go. But it has been fantastic to see those kids connect with each other in that way, and to offer that additional opportunity for them to share who they are in a safe and supportive way. So thank you both so much. And I'm going to turn things over to Susan and Charlotte, if you want to talk a little bit about the middle school and what this work looks like for you all.
Hi, hello again. I am Susan Phillips. I am the 6th grade cultural studies teacher, as well as the middle school DEI coordinator. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about middle school and how we approach the DEI lens. In middle school, throughout our curriculum, we actually approach the DEI curriculum by making sure that we embed different perspectives and different points of view within our curriculum. So not just looking at ethnicity and diversity, but also looking at neurodiversity, also looking at ableism, looking at those different perspectives that kids aren't always used to seeing. We also look at our classrooms as a whole. So not just looking at the curriculum on the paperwork, but looking at what does our classroom look like? How is it set up to make sure that our kids are being put in a position to be successful? So if that is from having wobble stools, from having different options of how you can submit assessments, whether it's writing it, whether it's having immersive reading, having those options available for these students will help allow for them to have that piece of range as far as the DEI lens is concerned when it comes to our curriculum within our classroom. We also have our advisories where we do more of that social emotional learning, also looking at various perspectives and lenses, but also bringing the students into that learning, using their helping them build advocacy and asking those deeper questions and wanting to learn more, but also providing them with the tools to be able to do so in a respectful and an intentional, authentic way. Also in our assemblies, we have a lot of student-led assemblies where they collaborate not only with each other, but they collaborate with Pam and Charlotte, who are our middle school principals, to make sure that the assembly not only talks about things that are related to them, but also different perspectives across our middle school forum. So it is super important for us to look at it at a broader perspective and look at it throughout our entire school, whether it's from the beginning of the school, them walking into the school and saying hello and making sure that they feel welcome, to understanding how to communicate with one another and having those strategies and tools to do so in a productive way. That all stems from every single thing that we do in our middle school. Another thing we have, Chandani made a mention of this, but we do have affinity groups in our middle school. We have the neurodiversity affinity group. We also have the Jewish aligned affinity group, the students of color gathering, and we definitely will have many more. We are consistent with asking our students what are some things that they need to be successful and to be productive in this space so that they can learn better. So these are all ideas that we get from our students, and we utilize those ideas and bring those back to our faculty and staff and say, what are some things that we need to work on and we need to do to make sure they are having the best experience that they can have. When it comes to what our division is working on, especially with our curriculum, for middle school, we're looking inside our curriculum and looking at some of the things according to the social justice standards of what are some of the strengths that we see within our departments. So looking at the history department from 6th grade to 8th grade, what are some of the strengths that we do? And then also looking at some of those challenges, right? So it's important to look at those challenges so that we know that these are some things that we can work on, but also making sure that we have the materials and the resources to be able to do so. And if that means going to different conferences like POCC or the White Affinity, White Alliance conference, or the Social Justice IDSJ conference. Those are things that are put into place so that we can get that knowledge so that we can bring it back and make a change and also enhance our curriculum. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything, but I believe that I covered a good bit. If I did, Charlotte, who is my assistant principal, will definitely cover the rest. So thank you.
Susan, thank you so much. As you can see, we really try to weave the work of DEI into the daily life in the middle school, whether that's through our curricular choices and our classes on a day-to-day level, or through our community programs, our advisories, our assemblies, the celebrations that we have, the way that we have restorative conversations with students. Susan covered that really well. And I also love to see and hear about the spiraling of that work from beginning school to lower school into middle school. Similar to lower and beginning school, we work to have multiple identities represented in the books that are on the shelves in the classrooms, in the books that are read, in the way that we look at history. Our 8th grade United States history curriculum looks at history from the lens of marginalized groups. We're enmeshed currently in an ethics bowl in the 8th grade, where we're looking at all different ethical dilemmas and questions throughout the history of the United States and how we're addressing those in our current and modern circumstances. And I think that work that was done in the lower and beginning school sets us up to do that in the middle school. And then also we work to set up the upper school in the work that they do as well. And that's one of the things that I love being at a pre-K through 12 schools, that we're able to learn from and with each other. This is my 12th year at Roland Hall, and one of the things that I love the most about being here is we really are a culture of continual learning, and that learning is with the students and it is with the adults as well, and that the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is an integral part of the work and the learning that we do as adults in this community.
Thank you so much, Charlotte and Susan. I feel like that was an excellent overview, and hopefully lots of folks are feeling connected to the middle school at Roland Hall. I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Kate Taylor, who's going to share a little bit about the upper school. And I believe that Stacia had to step away for a second. She's our upper school assistant principal, so she might be able to return. But in the meantime, Dr. Kate Taylor has been at Roland Hall, I think also, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, 12 or 13 years. So has a long history of championing this work and being a leader of this work long before I arrived. So I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you. And I really am conscious of wanting to leave time for the students to speak as well. So I'm going to try to keep it somewhat brief. There's so much great work going on in the upper school with my colleagues. I could think of, I've got a huge list here of things I could talk about, but I want to pull out two two projects in two separate classes that I think touch on some of the social justice standards. And the first one is a project in the 11th grade. The first two domains of the social justice standards are centered on identity and diversity. And in the 11th grade, students read a trio of books, Passing, The Great Gatsby, and Bodega Dreams, in the beginning of the semester of the first semester. And so that investigates that idea of passing and how we tend to pass all the time in lots of different ways, and how that's a particular experience for different social identities through three different lenses. And then the students are asked to write their own passing narratives. So it's an opportunity to both see identity, different identity representations, but also think about your own identity. So it hits those diversity and identity social justice standards, I think, in a really strong way. And then in the environmental science class, students look at the history of redlining in Salt Lake City and think about how that impacts heat in the valley. And they've done heat mapping projects that have gone beyond the classroom into producing actual scientific data that has been studied and integrated by scientists out in the world, which I think is super cool. And that is an example of thinking about justice and action, the social justice aspect of redlining and the impact on communities it's had, not just where communities live, but the actual physical effect of living in those communities. So those are just two examples of the way that this work gets into the curriculum in lots of different classes in the upper school. We have a lot of opportunities to learn both in faculty meetings, but also the school is just very supportive of professional development. And if you can find a conference where you're going to improve your skills in these areas, you can go. It has been my experience, and I've taken that opportunity many times and brought my department members at the English department along with me and encouraged others to do it. It's a real joy to work here. So that's kind of an overview. I hope that is good.
Absolutely. And I think Stacia is not able to join us, but I would like to share a couple other things about the upper school. We have 11 affinity groups in the upper school, so I will not list them all here, but it's an array of religious affinity groups, racial affinity groups, gender-based affinity groups. And really we take our cues from the students. So if students want to start a new affinity group in the upper school, we are very supportive. And though we cannot yet bend time and space to make the scheduling happen in the ways that we would like, we are always figuring out creative ways for students to meet so that they can support each other and do that work together. And Dr. Kate Taylor actually is also the faculty sponsor for a long-standing group called the Jedi Student Leaders, who lead a lot of the learning in our community, which I will use as a segue to introduce our students. We have 4 upper school students with us here today, and I appreciate them making time during this busy time of year. It's always busy, I think, for you all. So what I'd like to invite them to do is we have a set of questions that we're hoping that they will offer some reflections around. And students, as you unmute yourselves and share your answers, would you please share your name and share your grade that you're currently in, and also how long you've been at Rowland Hall before you start responding, just so that we get a sense of your connections to the school community. So the first question I'd love to ask you all is around, why is Rowland Hall a good place, a special place to go to school? And I know that each of you likely have some different aspects of school that you'd like to talk about. So I will turn things over to the 4 of you, and I will wait and let you unmute and start sharing your reflections.
Should we start? Okay, I'll go first. I'm Kavitha. I am in grade, and I've been here since kindergarten, so some would call me a lifer. The reason I would consider Rowland Hall a good place to go to school is mainly the teachers and the faculty and just the educators in general. I think we have one of the most encouraging adults like in our school, and I think they listen very well to students. They're always open to feedback, and they're just like the kindest people you'll meet. And I think, yeah, that's probably my favorite reason to go to Rowland Hall.
Yeah, I'm Sylvia. I'm a junior as well, and I've been here for about 5 years now. And I think Roland Hall is just overall a very great community, especially when we look at things of like our programs, which has been already talked about a lot. But we also have like an upper school chaplain that I think also works with middle school and lower school as well. And he's a great person that comes and kind of educates us on like all of the like religious things going on in our community and outside of our community, which is a great way to kind of get an education about things that are beyond us. And I think that's one thing that I've really loved to kind of experience here at Roland Hall, is learning something that's not necessarily mine, but I can kind of learn about like other people that I'm going to meet later on.
Yeah, I'll make this brief, but I'm Maddie. I'm also a junior, and I've been here since freshman year. This school for me is really about belonging, going into the second question. Here, I feel as if I can be myself, unlike a lot of the other schools I've been to. As Kavitha said, the like adults here are really just supportive and always, got your back. And the people here are really just the kindest. So it's a great place to be.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm a senior and I've been here since second grade. And so just to kind of answer the first question and also combine it with the second question, kind of like Maddie did. So I've spent over a decade of my life here, and it's very, very clear that every adult and every person here will bend over backwards to make you feel like you belong and like you are a valid contributor and member of this community. Especially in my case, I'm one of many families that receives financial aid, and that kind of goes along with a lot of other opportunities that may not have been available to me at other schools or other places that have really, I guess, just made it feasible for me to kind of have an opportunity of engaging with students and teachers here. And kind of just to borrow a phrase from Miss Larson, I think it really is a place of continual learning and kind of, I guess, shaping minds and futures. So I think that's why I would most say it's a good place to go to school.
Thank you all so much. For the three of you who are in that space together, any other thoughts about that second question? I know Maddie and Gabby attended to it a little bit, but anything more you'd like to share about what does belonging look like for you at Roland Hall?
Yeah, kind of pivoting off of what Gabby was talking about. Belonging for me is also those opportunities that we get to receive, especially us three. We were able to go to the diversity conference this year with POCC and SDLC. And I feel like at any other school, you wouldn't get the same experience of kind of that push to like continue DEI work. And as a member of our JEDI, which is our Justice, Equity, and Diversity Club, we're definitely leading our school and talking to our peers a lot about how to continue this work, even in like social interactions and like kind of every day.
Yeah, just to add on, I think belonging is kind of a feeling of being safe and comfortable of who you are. And I think Roland Hall does that well in the affinity groups it has and the initiatives that it takes on in assemblies. And I think that just having those spaces really adds to the belonging of the students in this school.
Even in our curriculum, we are actively working to push lenses of other people. For example, today we had a reading on diversity and immigration, which is disability and immigration, which is one of the first times I've seen disability mentioned at all in a history class. So we're constantly adding things to the curriculum to make it more inclusive for all of us.
Awesome, thank you. Gabby, anything more you wanted to add?
No, I was also going to talk about the curriculum and just kind of how the initiatives of DEI are kind of just present everywhere, and how that's very clear with just how accessible affinity groups are, and especially starting an affinity group or trying to maybe begin a student initiative or really just get involved. It's really student oriented, and students and their experience are the priority. So.
Awesome, thank you all. I'm curious if there are specific initiatives you'd like to talk a little bit more about. So any initiatives that the school has introduced or that you all have introduced, because I know you've introduced many that have helped promote your feelings of belonging or maybe peers' feelings of belonging here at school.
For me, I feel like something that I definitely have seen in the school a lot now is our like all gender restrooms and our single stall all gender restrooms. And like that's the like a good example of like something I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis to kind of work on inclusion. Because when we talk about belonging and we talk about the things that the school is doing is we're really being active in our community, especially we had students come and dance in the Pride Festival this year and prior years to this as well. And I feel like as a school, we show up to things like that just to kind of make sure that everybody is going to have that space, that safe space regardless.
Yeah, all the adults have touched on this, but just the fact that we have a DEI coordinator in both the beginning, lower, middle, and upper school, and we have affinity groups in all of those age ranges, are great initiatives that are new to the school, that have been new to me, at least in the past few years. And I think that has helped promote the feeling of belonging, especially since you're starting from a young age and bringing it up. And I think that's really important.
We good with that question? Okay. And then the last one. So one of the things I love about our school community, and I think some of the grownups have already mentioned this, is that we never think the work is done, right? We are all committed to, as Charlotte said, ongoing learning, but also taking action and doing things differently. And as Mick mentioned at the top of our call, that means sometimes letting go of things that are not working to make room for things that we can build towards. So I'm curious from your lens as students, and I know, Gabby, you're graduating this year, but what work is still left for the school to do, or what work have you all already identified that is ongoing for us as we continue our DEI journey and continue to develop new initiatives? Gabby, do you want to go first and then we could turn it over?
Sure.
Okay.
I think maybe what first comes to mind for me is having more faculty members and adults in this space who are people of color. I think that's definitely been something that's improved a lot, very noticeably in recent years. But I think it just opens up a lot of opportunities for, I think, mentorship and discussion and dialogue, and sort of also just being seen in conversations. Because I think a lot of faculty members are so excellent and wonderful and dedicated in using their allyship in curriculums to sort of, I guess, highlight more minority or marginalized experiences, but I think also being able to connect with just adults in the space who also, I guess, can sort of speak from, as we call, an I perspective, is, I think, something that could be really valuable.
Yeah, there's always work to be done and learning to be, also done, especially with curriculum. I think, like most schools, we do use, although a lot of our stuff is moving forward, we do use older curriculums, and I would love to see a change in that, especially in our like math and science stuff. And like anything we do, I like to focus on disability as a disabled person, not hearing about that a lot. But, we struggle with being in this old building and being disability friendly as well. But I am positive that in the new building, we will do a lot better, and we are working great strides to do better right now.
Sylvia or Kavita?
Yeah, or do you want to go?
You go first.
Okay. Also with that, I do see us getting better at kind of looking at aspects of our identity that's kind of hidden when it comes to like family structure or even socioeconomic status, which we are already doing. But I think it's something that we definitely need to touch on more, because not everybody is thinking about this work as much as others, and especially when it doesn't belong to you, or if that's something that's kind of outside of your eye perspective. I feel like that's one way we can kind of progress forward.
To go off the ideas of mentorship that Gabby was mentioning, I think, yeah, little things like that, like seeing someone maybe that looks like you in an adult or someone you look up to is really important. And I think that connecting with lower school or middle school students in that, with upper school students, we've talked about that a lot, could be really helpful, because I know that mentorship as a young student is always something that would be appreciated. And so I think working towards that would be great. And I know that we are working towards that, and that takes time. So yeah.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate you making time. I know that the four of you may have places to be, so feel free to leave the call if you need to. We're just going to spend a few more minutes on our call today, because I know that often folks have questions about Utah or Salt Lake City, or what is it like to be a person of color here. And so I just wanted to spend our last couple of minutes here giving folks an opportunity to share a little bit about that faculty staff of color experience here in Salt Lake City, from that BIPOC lens, in terms of maybe what brought folks here, what keeps you here. We have several new folks in our community who are actually on this call. We will, not have time for all of these questions likely today, but I would love to ask you all this first question in terms of what brought you here and what keeps you here. And maybe that last question around what's it like living in Utah or Salt Lake City. And I know there's several of you on the call who probably would like to contribute. So feel free to unmute, and then I will kind of monitor to see who we can move to after you've shared your thoughts. So does anyone want to get us started with that first question?
Chandani, I don't mind jumping in.
Please, Stacia, thank you.
Hello, I am Stacia McFadden. I'm the assistant principal of Upper School. And I'm 5 months in, 6 months in, started officially July 5th. And I was definitely drawn to Roland Hall by the mission, developing people the world needs. Fortunately, when I was interviewing, I was able to be here for 3 days and not do like a fly-in where I was in and out so quickly. And so it was nice to really be immersed in the community for several days and interact with the kids. Some of the kids that you just heard from actually interviewed me. And I will say they are the reason I decided to pick up my life and leave Atlanta, Georgia, and come to Salt Lake City. Being one of 2 African-American people in this upper school building, I just felt it was important for them to have someone that looked like me. And it has truly been rewarding ever since. Do you want me to just go down the list, or do you want to do one thing at a time?
I think maybe you can share a little bit about that last question, Stacia, and then if we have time, we can come back to the others.
Sure. Living in Salt Lake has definitely been a culture shock. However, there is a very strong, and I can speak only from the Black perspective, African-American community here. Before I even moved out here, I was connected to over 800 Black professionals in the region via a GroupMe app. And I can jump on there and ask, hey, where can I get my hair done? Where can I find a church? Where can I do certain things? And they're so responsive. They're also very intentional about gathering, which I really appreciate. So I can always find an event or an activity to get involved with. And I'm also a member of a sorority. We have a chapter here. So I've also been able to get involved in the community through those connections. So while many people ask at first, really, Utah? It's really not as bad as people think. It gets a bad rap, I think, on media. So I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm enjoying the beauty, the atmosphere, everything about this area, this region.
Thank you so much, Stacia. Anyone want to go next?
I can jump in. Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna jump in just because basically I'll reiterate all the things Stacia said. And, I think it's interesting that Stacia's been here 5 months. 8 years ago when I came, it was a lot of the same experiences. And literally coming here to visit the lower school, I think I met Gabby when she was in 3rd grade and Kavitha when she was in kindergarten, right? And so it was students. And it's amazing to see who those students have become. That's what keeps me here. And what brought me here and keeps me here is the opportunity for impact. I think it is rare that, I think all of us as educators want to have an impact on students and on communities. And there's this rare opportunity that exists here at Roland Hall in Salt Lake City that doesn't exist elsewhere. And in terms of what it's like living here, just like a little glimpse, I'm going to the Jazz game tonight. It's going to be easy to find parking. We're going to have some good food beforehand. And then this weekend, we're going to go skiing, right? So it's pretty good. Life is good here. And that's from someone who relocated here 8 years ago from San Francisco and loved living in the city. And I love living here too.
Thanks, Jay. I think Josie, were you wanting to go?
Yes, really, really quickly. I was so impressed with the DEIE work that Roland Hall is doing. And they started doing this work before it was the thing to do in Salt Lake City. And so I was like, no, I have to be in this environment, this community. Not only that, when you walk through the halls, the love of children and the love of learning is palpable. And that drew me into this community, right? And something Jay said, and I was about to say it before he hopped on, was the reason I want to stay here is that I want to see those little change makers in that's brewing in beginning school grow to be the change makers that we're sending out into the world, like the Kavitas and the Sylvias and so forth. And I had such the great pleasure of fraternizing with those young people, and their leadership quality is just bar none. Right. So I'm invested in this work the same way Roland Hall is, and I'm glad to be part of a community that's dedicated to that work. And I'm not going to say much more, but Salt Lake City has been amazing to live, to work in, between the eateries and the amount of folks of color that you can connect with. Like Stacia said, it's a thriving people of color community. So that's my Roland Hall plug.
Thanks, Josie. Anyone else want to offer some thoughts?
I can just agree with everything else that was already stated. I was very unsure when I found out I would be moving here to Utah. I talked to Jay, made me feel a little bit better about that happening. I moved here from California, and people told me in California, like, Roland Hall, that's the school you want to go to. If you can be picky, like, you want to work at Roland Hall. And it was because Roland Hall was already doing this DEIJB work. And I have been very, very surprised, very happy here. I thought I'd be here for 3 years and then head on someplace else, but we're already talking about staying for a few more years or for the long term. It's an easy lifestyle, no traffic, easy parking, like Jay said, and so many opportunities to be outdoors, enjoy the sunshine. It's just a great place to live. And people are very intentional about making connections and finding friends in your core group of people. I feel like we have a community here, both at school and outside in my personal life as well.
Thanks so much, Samantha. All right, I know we are at time and maybe a little past time. So I will share just one thing from my perspective. When I interviewed with Roland Hall, we were still on Zoom COVID times, and I felt the warm, welcoming energy through the Zoom screen. I know Shuja, yours was also on Zoom, so I think we've talked about this. And I was very, very, I felt very cared for during that process, and like I wanted to join this community. And I made a decision, having not seen the school or visited the school. And then when I had an opportunity to come visit, I was able to confirm that the things folks told me on that call were true. In fact, we have a very warm, welcoming community. And there are so many things to do here in Utah. So whether you're into the outdoors or not, there is a place for you here. We have a thriving arts community. We have music, we have culture, we have anything that you're looking for, we have it, and it's accessible, as a lot of my colleagues have said, right? It is accessible because of the proximity. We don't have as much traffic as the coast, and it is a great place to be. So we appreciate you all tuning in today. If you have any questions that we did not have an opportunity to answer, please reach out to anyone who was on this call. We are all eager to chat with you and connect with you. You can find us on LinkedIn and other places. We are so happy always to talk about the work we're doing here at Roland Hall. Stay tuned to our employment page for open positions. And again, as you're looking at those, if you have questions, we are all happy to answer those questions for you and with you in conversation. And check out our website to learn more about our school. Thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to getting to connect with you soon.
Okay, you guys, thank you so much. This was really wonderful for me and everybody who's going to see this video to learn more about Roland Hall. As someone who is from one of the coasts, right? I'm a New Yorker who currently lives in North Carolina, so I understand the ease of parking, making your whole life better. But there's this sort of mystery about all of the states in between the two coasts. And I would say Utah is one of those states, and you have illuminated us on Utah and really on Roland Hall. It sounds like a very intentional, inclusive, and forward-thinking institution of education, which is all that we can hope for and want for our children and for the educators and administrators who work there. And so I want to thank you again for all your time. It was really wonderful. I also want to give an opportunity to our founder, Orpheus, if you want to say anything before we wrap up, or if you said what you needed to say when you visited them recently. And you're on mute if you are saying something.
I'm not a rookie, really, but yeah, I did. I said a lot there, but I've been bragging about y'all. Okay, so you're gonna get hits for sure. We can push this out to people. It was very well done, and I'm gonna tell you, just like I already knew. I mean, your kids are just slamming. They were awesome. It was really good. Really well done. Good job, y'all.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And thanks for making the time for us in December. And thank you to my colleagues for also doing the same. I know it's not an easy time of year. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, everyone.